So this is my mission inspiration journal where I've been keeping all of my projects throughout the year of 2018. So that was for the second one for October, and there's my first one for October. So I'm getting ready for November. So I'm going to put this to one side, and I've got another sheet of 8x8 watercolour cardstock. This is £140 or 300 GSM. Now it's slightly textured on one side. The camera's not going to pick that up, I don't think. Maybe you can just see a little bit of texture there near where my finger is. But on this side it's smoothish, so I'm actually going to be working on the smooth side of this one today. So the prompts for the month of November, now normally I print them out to show you, but unfortunately my printer is out of colour ink, so I have the prompts on my phone here. So you can see that the colours for November are sand, burnt orange and earth, some really nice kind of earthy tones, and warm kind of autumnal or fall colours, depending on where you are in the world. Obviously people in Australia are probably coming into spring about this time. So and then I've got all my steps and prompts to follow and my words for inspiration. So I'm going to be using my phone today rather than actually ticking it off on a printed list. So I could do it in black and white, but hey ho. So the first step then, so step number one is to glue images of friends, family or loved ones. Okay, so what I've done is I've quickly created on my computer a collage of photographs of family members, and obviously Benjamin Bunny, who we sadly lost last year. And we've got Mr. Bentley, we've got mum and dad, I've got I've got my sisters, I've got one of my aunties, another one of my aunties there, and another silly photograph of dad. I've just had to print this out in black and white really quickly, which is why you've got some of those phantom stripes on. So I'm going to glue, I'm going to actually start tearing some of these up and actually start to glue some of these down. Now, I'm not going to be perfect or exact, as long as I've got kind of faces in there. And I'll tear off Ian to overlay. I'm going to tear mum there, and I'll just tear that gap away from dad. And I'm going to start layering all these up. I'm going to make sure that I've not got the white border showing, so I'll tear those off. I'll make sure they're over the edge of the page. Now obviously there's a picture of me and Mr. Bentley there, so I'm going to try and avoid sticking a picture of me on there, but I will get a picture of Mr. Bentley in there too. So this is going to take a little while just to tear a few images and stick down. So what I'll do is I'll put some music on and I'll start gluing and sticking down. I'm not going to be using matte medium or anything. I'm actually going to be using spirit glue to stick all these down. So while I'm going through these and placing them all down, I'll put some music on and I'll put this on fast forward so you can watch what I'm doing as I'm doing it. So off we go. Okay, so that's pretty much just glued all of those images down. So I've condensed a bigger sheet down into a smaller, well I've actually got it to fit on that 8x8 there. So there are a few gaps, but I'm not particularly worried about that because they will get filled in with colour when I actually start going. And as you can see, I've used the spirit glue so that I had a little bit of wiggle room to do that. So I could play a little bit in positioning. So now all I'm going to do is just go around all of the edges with a pair of scissors just to remove all the excess, just to tidy it up. Still a little bit of glue, or wet glue, so that's going to cling to the scissors. It doesn't really take that long to dry this stuff. He says, yeah. Okay, so that's step number 1. Glue images of friends, family, or loved ones. So I'm going to let that sit for a minute or two, just for the glue to kind of set and dry, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so it's had a few minutes to dry now. I want to go over the entire page with a coat of clear gesso, mainly because when I add the colour for one of the next steps, I don't want it to sink straight in. I actually want to be able to manoeuvre a little bit with it. So I'm going to go over, just add a quick coat of clear gesso, which will also help just to kind of seal it all together. As long as I get a decent coat all the way. There we go. That should do me. Stand still. And I'm not particularly bothered about getting any brush strokes in it. It just adds to that kind of textural feel. Once everything's all down. There will be a few little wrinkles appearing here and there, but that's to be expected because the gesso is wet when all said and done. But they should straighten themselves out again once it's dry. Try to get right in that corner. Okay, let's get the heat gun on it and you'll see all that gesso will start to disappear. And once that's all dry and all gone, I'll be right back. Okay, so that gesso is pretty much dry now, so we're going to move on to step number 2. So step number 2 is to cover with a wash or washes of colour. Okay, so I've got some Titan Buff, which is almost the same colour as the sand there. So I'm going to add a little bit of that Titan Buff onto my mat, just like so, and I've got a little bottle or spritz bottle of water, and I'm just going to add a little bit of water to it, mix it in so it's not neat, and then I'm going to start just adding some of that paint over the top. That kind of creates a nice little bit of tonality into the background. Let's add a little bit more as and when needed. So this is going to be my sand colour. Because this is one of the lighter shades. So we'll start off with that in the background. add that wash of colour over the top. And if you think you've gone a little bit too far, you can always just lift it back off again just a little bit with a wet wipe, because you've got that gesso. Some of those faces I don't particularly want to lose totally into the background. Just have some of them faces showing a little bit more. Just make it a little bit more visible. Okay, put that to one side, clean the brush, get this dry, and then I will be right back. Okay, that sand colour is pretty much dry now, so I'm going to add in a little bit of orange and do exactly the same thing. This is Burning Bonfire from Indigo Blue, which isn't a real matte colour. When I say matte, not opaque, it is actually quite translucent, so I'm actually going to just add a little bit of that. I'm not going to go too mad. It will cover quite a lot, but again, it's just going to add some tonality to it. Just grab that same baby wipe again, and this time just lift off some of that paint. Rub it around. It's actually spreading quite nicely. Ah, that's better. Add colour on, take colour off. Always the case. Just so I can see some of those faces still coming through, although we've got all that colour on there. Okay, so I'll just wipe off that orange, and then I'm going to add some more. This time, not of the orange, I'm going to go into that darker colour. So the earth colour is actually the Indigo Blue Hot Cocoa that I'm going to use. And I'm going to go around the outside. I've got a bit of a sponge here. Paint all over my fingers now. Look, yeah. What a messy business this is. And I'm sure there are quite a few of you at home now going, yes, but fun. Yeah. Just don't want to cross-contaminate too much. I've got some down there, look, that can all come off. Clean-up process. Okay, so sponge, and I'm going to go around the edge, just kind of creating a bit of a vignette. Some of this will be covered up later on when we add a border. But I'm just going to add some of this colour where I can. Just to break up some of those patches. Where there isn't any faces. There we go. That is a nice kind of background to start working on. So I'm going to get this dry, clean up this mess, and when I've done that, I'll be right back. Okay, so step number 2 done. So I've covered with washes of colour. So step number 3, add paper shapes geometric or other. Okay, so it's autumn, so I've got a couple of punches here. So I've got some little flower punches or petal kind of shapes. I've got some book text paper, and I'm going to create or punch out just a few flower shapes, and also I'm going to punch out some little leaf branches. I'm probably not going to use all of them. But just enough for me to do what I want to do. So I'm going to start adding on some kind of, I know these are the same kind of colour, but that's okay, because what we can do is just grab some of that glue. I'll start creating, just adding some glue onto in the corners. There we go. So I've got some there. I'll do another cluster. Over here. See, the thing with these mission inspirations is all the prompt says glue geometric shapes or other. It pretty much gives you the scope to put whatever shapes that you want down. So if you want to add circles, add circles. If you want to add squares. If you want to add, you know, flowery shapes or branch kind of shapes, go right ahead. It really doesn't matter. It's what you want to do and how you want to tackle the prompt. Your interpretation is no different to my interpretation. What I decide I'm going to do, you might go completely in the opposite direction, and that's equally as valid. Just because I've decided to use leaf shapes because we're coming up to autumn doesn't mean to say you have to. If you want to stick to any kind of shape, the word shape encompasses most things, so you can pretty much do what you jolly well want to do, and nobody can tell you it's wrong. Okay, so I'm now going to use some of those flower shapes. One in the middle. One there. One there. And then what I'm going to do is I'll see if I've got some orangey browny kind of card. Let's see what I've got. Oh, that's a bit wowy. Just to add in a little pop of colour. Excuse me, that was my chair, not me. Okay, because we're using orange, let's stick that over the top. Stick that over the top. that one over the top, just so we've got a little bit of a colour difference. And then, yeah, so we've just got a little bit of a pop of orange colour just showing through underneath there. That'll do. I'm not going to add any more of that. 3 little instances there, created kind of visual triangle around the page. Don't forget we've still got to add our quote and go through the rest of the steps, so I don't want to make it too busy just yet. Okay, so let me just sit that for a minute or two, let those dry and grab, and then I'll be back when they're done. Okay, so those paper shapes have had a little bit of time to dry, so let's move on to and look at the next step, which is step number 4, which is to add secret journaling of gratitude and love. So I've got a Pigma Micron number 8 pen here, but you can obviously use any kind of pen that you want to. You're writing on acrylic, so you want something which is fairly permanent. The football pen works just as well for this, if you've got one of those. If you haven't got either of these two, then just use a standard ballpoint pen. It'll work. It's supposed to be secret journaling, so you're not really supposed to be able to read what it says. So I'm going to actually write across this part here, and I'm just going to do it in really kind of scribbly handwriting, so you know, so it doesn't matter whether you can read it or not. You're not really supposed to be able to read it, so it's fine if your handwriting is that illegible. So let me just get on and do it. So okay, so I've got that down. Like I said, it doesn't matter. You can add it in one place, you can add it in other places. It doesn't matter, as many times as you want. So just once, or you could add it around the outside, you could add it around the shapes if you want to. Totally and utterly up to you. So I've just got my little bit of writing throughout the middle of the page, which is fine. So that's step number 4. So step number 5 is to draw inside a stencil. Okay, so I've got out my honeycomb stencil. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to lay it down, and still using that same Pigma Micron pen, I'm going to hold the stencil and I'm just going to start using the shapes and just start drawing around the inside, but I'm not doing every single one. I'm only going to do it in certain areas around the page. So I'm going to do some over here, and it doesn't have to be perfect and it doesn't have to be exact. You can miss lines, it's not a problem. It's just a nice way of creating a little bit of interest if you don't want to add extra colour. Because I've got photographs in the background of mine, I don't particularly want to hide them too much. I want to cover some of them up, but it doesn't really make a difference, you know, whether you do each and every one or you leave some lines out of it. So I've got a little bit there, a little bit there, and I think I'm going to add just a small bit up here towards the top as well. So I've just moved the stencil around. I'm going to take some of it off the page. just like that. Actually, maybe a couple. And I've actually stopped where, like, there's parts of the photograph, so it looks as almost looks as though that they're actually part of, or actually in front of where I've actually added those shapes, and that's cool. I like that. So I'm going to put that away, and because this this Pigma pen takes a little bit of time to dry, I'm going to just leave that for a minute or two, and then I'm going to come back to it. So I'll be with you once it's all nice and dry. Okay, so that pen's had plenty of time to dry. I did just give it a little bit of encouragement with the heat gun. So ready now to move on to step number 6. So step number 6, add quote, phrase or word. Okay, I'm going to choose the word home from the words of inspiration. Because we've used photographs of family, that's what I'm going to do. So I've got some of these alpha chips that have been sitting in a drawer on my worktop for quite some time, so I'm actually going to glue those down onto my page, and I'm just going to use the same glue that I used before. I'm just going to add a little dollop, and I'm actually going to stick them over the top of my secret journaling, because it wouldn't be secret if it was out in the open, would it? So I know what it says, and that's all that really matters. And you know what yours will say. So every time you look at this page, you'll remember what it is that you wrote. It's there for you. It's your art journal page. We don't do these art journal pages for other people, we do our art journaling for us. Okay, so you could do that so the letters are all kind of higgledy-piggledy, but don't really want to. I've also got this other one from the Tim Holtz, I can't remember what they're called, but they're the ones that are on the chipboard. So the word chips or alpha chips or whatever it is that they call them, I can't remember off the top of my head now. And I'm going to add that one just down there at the bottom, just so it's underneath. Now the reason I chose those, because obviously they've got that kind of sandy colour in the background as well, so that will also help tone it in with the rest of the page. And we've got that kind of nice beigey colour in the book text that we've got there. So all the colours kind of do work together with little pops of colour here and there. Okay, so again, I need to make sure that those are dry before moving on. So I'll leave those for a second or two, maybe go put the kettle on this time, and I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, so they've had plenty of time to actually set now, so we're ready to move on to step number 7. So step number 7 is to add highlights with white. Okay, so there are lots and lots of different ways in which you can do this. You can use white paint, you can use white ink, you can use white pen. You can add white accents to the page by adding, paper shapes, that kind of stuff, if you want to. My preferred method is going to be just to add some white splatters to start off with. So I'm just going to mix a little bit of white paint, and then I'm going to just introduce a few little splats here and there just around the page. Now, I'm not going mad, that's all I'm going to do. That's it, done for those little white splats. before I go and add anything else, I just want to make sure they're going to be dry, so I'm just going to give them a quick blast. Sticking to step number 7, so this won't take long to get these dry, so but with the magic of video editing I shall speed through this and I'll be back with you in just a second. Okay, so with the aid of the speed gun that really didn't take long to do. So, but what I also want to do is I want to bring back that stencil, and I'm just going to add, just lay it back over where I've already gone over, and I have a white Stabilo rollerball, a white opaque rollerball pen, and all I want to do is just add a few kind of highlighted cross-hatching marks. And maybe just down here, just turn the stencil around so it fits, and then do the same thing again. Maybe with these up here as well. Lots of different ways to add highlights to your page. You could actually go back and shade in a few of these if you wanted to, just to give it that kind of duotone look. They don't have to be perfect. Just introducing a little bit of white into the foreground, like you have done with those splatters. Because you've got white here, it's going to tie in quite nicely, and you've also got white from the paper, so it's all going to work rather lovely. I think maybe just a little bit more on these two. And then maybe a little bit down here. I'm not going over where I've got the flower petals or the geometric shapes. I'm actually doing it so it looks as though it's underneath. And you can see how that's kind of now sitting and bringing all those kind of colours to the foreground and then pushing back the background further into the background, which is cool, which we like. I like that a lot. So again, I don't want to smudge that pen, I want to leave it to dry until it's all kind of set, and I'm not going to disturb it, so I shall give it a few minutes and then I'll be right back. Okay, so while step number 7 was drying, I got ready for step number 8. So step number 8 is to create borders from book or music text. Okay, so using that same paper that I used to create or punch out the flower shapes, I just cut a few strips off ready, and all I'm going to do, I've got just very, very thin strips, and I've got one of the Diane Reevely Diary glue sticks, and I'm just going to run, that's if there's any glue left. I've really gone through these a lot recently because I've done quite a bit of collage in my art journal pages. So okay, so all I'm going to do is just stick a little bit of that around the outside. And grab another piece. I haven't done it all at a uniform length, or width I should say, they all are quite scrappy and different. And I'm just lining it up. Grab the next piece. I'm going to leave that gap. I'll come back and fill it in a little while. I'm just using the big pieces to start off with. So this one next. With the edge, and then I've got a couple of pieces that I can trim off. I'll add glue to. Like so. And then just use the last piece just for those last two corners. Okay. So we've created a border out of that book text paper, which kind of brings it all together, doesn't it? Right, I'm going to clear this up. Have a bit of a tidy up, allow that paper just to kind of grab and bond to the background, and then I'll be back just to finish off. Need to get all this wiped down. Okay, so it's pretty much all dry now, and it's created a nice kind of border to the page which kind of mimics what's inside the page too, with those leaves and little flowers. But there's one thing that I have to do just to finish it off, and that's just to add some centres to those flowers. Now, because we've got, or using earth tones, we've used oranges, we've used sandy colours, and we've also used that brown colour just to kind of give it that vignette kind of feel. I want to add a few little dark centres to the flowers, so I'm going to be using the brushed corduroy distress stickles, and I'm just going to get a bit of scrap first of all, that's better, and then I'm going to just add just 2 or 3 little drops just into the middle of those flowers. And probably one would have done it, but I like doing things in threes. And that's just going to add a little bit of extra darkness into the middle, which helps to balance the black of the home lettering. So there we go. That is my art journal page for the November mission inspiration. So I'll quickly run through all the steps, what we've done. So glued images of friends, family or loved ones into the background. Yep. So covered with washes of colour. We did 2 or 3 colour washes. Add paper shapes, geometric or other. So we've got our flowers and our leaf shapes. Add secret journaling of gratitude and love. Added that into the background underneath my home. Draw inside a stencil. Yes, I did do. I used that honeycomb stencil to draw, and then later add those white highlights. Add quote, phrase or word. I've used the word home, which is one of the words for inspiration for the month. Added highlights with white, as you've seen, inside that stencil, which helps to balance those colours. And then created a border from book on music text. And the colours I've used, you saw me use the sand, burnt orange and earth colours in there. So I think that is mission accomplished for November. So I hope you enjoyed watching that. If you did, please remember to give it a thumbs up, share the video with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel already, you can do so by clicking the button at the end of the video. And also, don't forget, this is part of the Mission Inspiration Facebook monthly challenge. If you haven't joined us over in our Facebook group, you can follow the link in the description area below, or just type in the address that is showing on the screen right this moment. It's free to join, and it's a very welcoming and supportive group, particularly if you're only just getting started. There's lots of inspiration there for you too, and also lots of people in there that you can chat and have meaningful art discussions, and it's an extremely safe place. So come along and join us if you haven't already. So that's it for me. I will see you all again very, very soon. Bye for now. I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of my angels, because without you, these videos would not be possible. Thank you.